Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of The Big Shift. My next guest has a fascinating story. His father, half-brother and cousin were unfortunately murdered in a famous mob hit back in 1995. I'm going to introduce this special man in a minute. Hi guys, nice to see you here again. God bless, and I hope you're okay out there. Everything's going well for you. On The Big Shift, we have unbelievable stories of endurance, adversity, and fascination. One of the wonderful things the Big Shift team like to put out to you guys is the solutions to a lot of ways of life. My next guest has an unbelievable story of adversity. He was a mafia capo in the Philadelphia mob, which is still one of the most active mafia groups in the country, guys. He has an unbelievable story of transformation. We're going to get to that in a minute. But listen, thank you all the guys who are going into the subscription model and, go in there and buying the book, The Monkey Puzzle Tree. It's definitely our aim to empower you guys and get you forward on your own exponential journey, so thank you for that. So look, I'm going to go straight into it now. My next guest is a wonderful Bobby Luisi. Hi, Bobby. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Steve. This is a great show. I've been watching you for a little while. I'm really honored to be here with you.
Thank you, Bobby. Look, and I know we've wanted to talk for a little while, and it's just took this time for us to come here. And yours is a fascinating story because I talk to a lot of the guys, over there, big names, you will know that. Mm-hmm. But I see your story as exactly the same, but with a slight twist, because there really is a metamorphosis there. Like my story, and I'm very, very interested about that. So it really is more of a big shift story as well, So look, I'm going to go straight into the hard stuff first, so people who may not know you just understand the darker part of your life. Now, as I said at the start, in 1995, you sadly lost your father, your half brother, and your cousin in a famous mafia murder. What happened there, Bobby?
Well, my father, I grew up in the North End, which is the Italian section of Boston. And my father pretty much was running the neighborhood at the time, And he kept having the run-ins with the Clementi family, with Damien, the son. And then one night, Damien and Vinny Perez beat up a young kid, Joey, that happened to be my brother Roman's cousin. So my brother Roman, a bad guy, murderer, and he was going to go after them, So there was a little conflict there. And I had told the boys that day, because they called me Vinny and Damien, I told them, stay out of the North End, go, just stay out for a few days till we straighten this out, because they were more in my crew, and so long story short, they went to the 99 to eat, and they were sitting in the back. And who walks in is my family, my father, brother, cousins, Sonny, and they panicked. And Vinny called me on the phone and said, Bobby, they just walked in here. Because earlier they called me to go for lunch there, but I had a meeting, And I told them, listen, pay the bill, go out the side door if they didn't see you, and just get out of there. But while Vinny was talking to me, Damien called his father, Cleo. So Cleo was on his way to the 99 to confront my father with the problem, and I guess when Cleo went to my father's table, they still didn't realize that Vinny and Damien were in the restaurant. When Cleo went to the table, words went back and forth, and my brother Roman, who got up, the first one to get off the table, Cleo shot him in the head and in the chest, I believe. And he went down, and then Cleo opened fire, and then the other boys came around the table. And I believe that Damien Clementi's bullet killed my father. So I lost 4 people that day, and my cousin Ricky was injured. I thank God he survived it, and really that's the basis of the story. I'm writing about that right now. We're putting up my book together, and it'll come out in more detail, but that's basically what happened at that time. So when my father got killed, go ahead, Steve, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I was just thinking about the severity of that for a moment, having an understanding of this life and how these things can explode. But that's certainly unique, and everyone was there at that time, and they sadly lost their life. I mean, for the other side, if they was really intent on doing this was a great thing for them. They didn't have to chase people and be lucky and all this. But then I was thinking that that this is the examples of what this life brings in the end. Really, this is the truth. And it's by the litany of choices that we lead when we enter a life like that, that this is one of the outcomes further down the road. Now, that's shocking to hear. And I know that would have been very, very hard for you, even to this day, even to write about it. But let's go back to your introduction into this life. I know you was a made man. What was the early days like before you really integrated into this life, Bobby?
Well, my father was a gangster, obviously, after that story. And I grew up around made guys my whole life. It was like nothing to me. I'd go and hang in their clubs and their restaurants, whatever. And I think I was 11 years old, 12 years old. I started working for the Angiulo family. They owned Rome Vending, and Ronnie Romanowski was their front guy and partner. And I used to go and do the cigarette machines with him, the pinball machines, and Saturday go roll on the dime machines. And I was doing good. I was making about $50 a week back then, And the progression was just a natural thing because, like I said, I was around them every day. If you walked in the North End in the 70s and the 80s, there's wise guys on every corner, social clubs, from there to East Boston to Revere, heavy populated Italian communities in Boston. And I grew up around all of it. And I never thought too much of it. I know what my father did. And I guess I was kind of proud of that. And at about 16 years old, I moved back in the North End. I got an apartment. My father gave me an apartment in his building. And, I started going around them every day, dressing up nice, shaving every day, whatever we had to do. And I felt at that time I was starting to get schooled in the life, But there was a big turnaround with me because my family are all construction guys. We all had companies and, I used to work for my uncles and other people. And I really loved to build and, do carpentry work. So I started to pull away from that. And, I think 16 years old, I was making $400 or $500 a week with a carpenter. By the time I was 20, I got my first builder's license. And, I wanted to go legit at that point. I didn't want to be mobbed up. I didn't want to be with those guys. My father was there. I didn't need it, My father had a strong influence.
What was the change? I mean, your father, he was a known, notorious figure of them days, organized crime figure. But did he dissuade you from the life, Bobby, or did he want you to do something else, or did he want you to follow in his footsteps?
Maybe in the 90s he did, but earlier on he never pressured me to, do anything but go to work. I think my father would have been proud of me either way, whatever I did and decided to do. At an early age, I seen what the life was like. Watching these guys sitting there, seeing what was going on, and I just felt it wasn't for me at the time. My father didn't try to persuade me either way. But I'll tell you a story. We were 17 years old, and me and my cousin Paulie did something for one of the wise guys. And when that was done, they sent us to Vegas because Petriarca used to have a piece of, Raymond Petriarca, the boss of the New England family, used to have a piece of the Tropicana. We're 17 years old. They're flying us down there, and we're gambling and all the excitement, So there were perks being around them, Steve. But like I said, after that, my interest started to like wane with organized crime. I really didn't want to be involved in it. It was good enough to be Bobby Luisi's son at the time, you know.
No, I get that. I get that, Bob. You know, here's the thing. You know, we go forward a little bit. You know, and you're a capo. You're a main man, and you're a capo. So this is a little bit forward. So let's go back again for the audience. You know, to give them dots and join the dots a little bit. Now, look. You know, you would have been exposed to this life. You would have known what this life was like, as you said. Specifically, you would have known it was a violent life, and violence was used in it. And those who were violent prospered, really, or they needed to have that in them, pretty much.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Are you a violent man? I mean, then, Bobby, was you a violent guy then? Did you take easy to violence?
Well, you know, I used to put a front on, Steve. You know, and yeah, I was very violent and ruthless in my own way. I had a little of that Machiavellianism in me with manipulating people. You know, I went on the street. I had no problem with murder, you know, the other things that came with it. I knew that was part of it. I mean, I didn't sign up to the mob to become a murderer. No one wants to do that, but, you know, you have the capabilities to do that. You know, I think that guys in my position, maybe have some problems, you know, maybe stemming from childhood or whatever, you know. And, you know, I didn't grow up with my father. He got remarried. My mother did. You know, I grew up in East Boston. He was in the North End. And I don't think I had that father figure there. And I was looking for something more in my life. And I felt like Cousin Oscar could do that for me. In 1990, go ahead, Steve.
No, I get that. I get that. You know, I mean, I had the same experience. I was, in all intents, feral. I had to find my own way, and we want to belong. You know, we want a protection. We want to, you know, and if it shines and it's very cool, then it's even better, right? At that age, of course, right? But look, so back in the day of them days, I just want to, you know, I want to get the dynamic a bit more clearer. You know, you had Angelo Bruno. Right, you know, you had that war, right? You know, in the early '80s within that family. Nicodemus Scarfo, of course. You know, another famous old school die-hard gangster. A lot of murders around him, around his name. Did you know these guys? Did your father know these guys? Did you ever come across?
I never met Bruno, and I never met Nicky Scarfo. Now I'll tell you what happened when I come back in the '90s. You know, there was a war still going on. Frankie Salami had taken over the family, and his faction was moving in on everything. My father was friendly with Frankie and Jackie, so naturally I kind of fit into that mold there, you know. In 1993, there was a murder of Richard Devlin, and that really sparked everything up again. At the point of that murder, you know, 5 different factions came up in Boston. And we battled it out for a few years. You know, I lost friends, you know, I lost family members. A lot of the enemy got killed. And it was a bad time up there. It was also a bad time in Philadelphia because Joey Molino was taking over that faction from Stanford. That was the boss there at the time. So both Joey and I were pretty much going through the same thing. I mean, I wasn't in Joey's position, don't get me wrong, at that time. What happened in the '90s going through the war, I started building up my family, building up my business and my little empire. And I had a falling out with the Petriarca family at that time. And we're talking 95, 96, you know, and I knew I wasn't going to get made. I was a proposed man in the Petriarca family, but I knew I was never going to get made in that family because I had a problem with a capo in the family. And at that point, I started looking out and I started reaching out to New York, and I was directed to Philadelphia.
Yeah, let me ask you about New York quickly there, Bobby, because look, I know at this time, you reached out to people like Peter Gotti, you know,
yes, I did.
Who is the brother of John Sr. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I know you reached out to them. You wanted to be in the Gambinos, right?
Well, what it was is I would have been happy at the time, I thought anyway, you know, maybe to be a capo in one of these other families and straighten my crew up. That was my objective. But I really wanted my own family. And that was my goal, my final goal. So my friend Jerry Cormet, the Frenchman from Rhode Island, a bad guy, dangerous guy, and Jerry sent up Giggsy from New York, from the Gambino family, to talk with me. Now, Giggsy wasn't a made guy, but he was a proposed guy, and he was with Angelo Melio, who was a one-time captain of the Gambino family. So between him and Angelo, he came up, he talked to me, he went back to Pete Gotti, and Pete told him to send a message back to me. He says, Bobby, there's another family up there. I can't, with commission rules, I can't do that. You know, I can't come up there, and you know, and I can't help you. So from there, I went to Philadelphia and I met Ralph Natali. He was the boss at the family at the time. He was the front guy for Joey Merlino. And then after meeting Ralph, I went down and I met Georgie in Delaware, and then I ended up meeting Joey and the crew, and we just hit it off. I mean, a bunch of great guys down there.
So let me ask you. Let me take you back to the Gambinos a little bit, you know, and ask you just a point on some mob history there. It's very prevalent at the moment. So at this time, you know, I'm guessing John Gotti Sr. was in prison. Sammy the Bull Gravano, you know, he testified and he was being moved around. What was your view of what went on with these two guys at that time? Because I'm looking at the landscape, Bobby, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and this is important as it translates into later days. Well, what was your view of what went on between Sammy the Bull Gravano and John Gotti coming just after that? What was your view about what went on between them guys and what was going on in the Gambino family?
Well, you know, after what John and Sammy did to Big Paulie Castellano, you know, what he, you know, after they clipped him, all the smaller families were in disarray. Now everybody's going after their bosses. And this is what started in Philly and Boston mainly, in some other parts of the country. I wasn't crazy about either one of them, to be honest with you. I don't like what was done, but I understand why John did it. You know, John Gotti was a man's man. He was a boss. I mean, I have to give him all that credit. You know, then him and Sammy get pinched, and they're out of the picture, and the son and Pete's there at one time, you know, and I felt maybe at that time they had to put back together. Everything was going good with them. You know, you have to understand something, Steve. I'm 300 miles away in Boston. As soon as I'm a capo, I'm a boss. That's it. You know, there's no other way around that. I'm running my crew in Boston. New York's 300 miles away. I don't think there's a telescope that can reach me that far, you know? So I wasn't really concerned who I hooked up with at the time. But, you know, thank God when I went down to Philly, you know, Joey took me in. Joey took me in.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just I'm trying to understand the dynamic because this was important in the transition of the mob. This was a pivotal point, right? It was. You know, and if you was around them guys at that time, I'm just interested to know your view and the view of the street as it proliferated down. Because people say a lot of things now, Bob, you know, and a lot of them, they wasn't there, they don't understand it, and they're talking that. No. So I like to get a view of people who may have knew a lot more, right? Yeah. So, because this was a great change. So, I mean, at that time in your mafia career, this is another important point. What did you think about what Sammy Gravano had done? Because Sammy says that John wasn't straight with him. All is fair in love and war. This is what Sammy says, right? You know, I don't sit no judgment on that. It just is. Who am I? But what was your view then amongst the guys of what was going on between them guys? Because it would have translated to your work and your protection as well, right?
Well, when Sammy flipped on a major boss, regardless of the circumstance, you know what we all felt about him, you know? And, you know, today understanding more, I understand why he did that, you know? John Gotti was a rough guy. He was a good guy, a half a fair guy, but he was a rough guy. And he posted too many things on Sammy. And I know about some stories from all my friends from New York, and it felt to me like he shook Sammy down a lot. He got his money from Sammy. He got extra money from Sammy. I think in a way, and I don't want to say it like this because Sammy was a man's man, but in a way, he might have abused Sammy a little. What I think happened psychologically in this life, you know, when they got pinched, Sammy seen what he was facing. John wanted him to take all the blame. You know, all right, he's the boss, but who's this guy to do this? He was the one sitting in the office talking about all these murders. It wasn't Sammy, you know? And then he wants things to come back down on Sammy so he can go back on the street. What are we doing here? Is this Lagos and Nostra? Or is this John Gotti's world? You know? Yeah. And do I blame Sammy now for what he did? No, absolutely not. I think he did the right thing, you know? You know, it's a shame he came out, he got in trouble again, but that, again, which I know personally, because I was with guys on his case, is that he got involved to protect his son, and he protected his son. And that's a man's man. And he went in and he did another 20 years, the poor bastard. See, the thing is, Steve, in this life, you know, it's not what it used to be. When I grew up in the 70s and the 80s around these guys, these were men, you know? Mm-hmm. And then it just turned into the Wild West in the 90s for us and for Philadelphia. You know, now New York, I got to tell you straight, I never really cared about New York. I don't care what they think, what they do. I grew up with old timers.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not an expert on everything, Steve, but I know how this life works.
Yeah, you see, this is interesting because it reveals a lot. I certainly think about what the life was really like and how it's changed now. Is that, look, you know, there was them old school guys, and I've talked to people who knew what they was like, right? And then you go forward a bit. You've got cases like the Trafficante family, you know, Palermo and all that. I mean, the whole family turned after that. You know, It's like the beginning of the end. I think there was 40 guys that was lining up because once the towel is out in the ring and bosses are rolling and, you know, people are doing the serious work on the street are rolling, they're getting in there first. Of course, the whole rules have changed. You said, well, hold on a minute. You're not keeping to the oath that you get to me. Why should I keep my oath to you? That's so, right. Of course, the whole thing, you know, crumbles. You know, there's a lot of people out there, they'll judge or they'll throw stones on, but some of them, you know, they've never even lived a life like that. They don't know what it is to have to live like that and navigate a life like that. So, you know, this is another way to reveal motivations and why, and, you know, clear up some things and give some clarity to, because there's a lot of stuff out there. You know, you got Sammy Gravano now, people like Michael Franzese. I mean, I know Michael quite well. We do some work, and, you know, I've interviewed Michael as well. There's a lot of YouTube about them too, guys having to sit down. What do you think about that, Bobby? You know, we'll talk about some names here now for a minute before we go back to some other stuff.
Well, like I said, I got a lot of respect for Sammy. God bless him. Mike Franzese is a great guy. I did an episode with him on Comedy Central in 2017. It was great, you know. And, you know, I go back and forth with Mike sometimes for Christmas, you know, with the texting. And I got a lot of respect for both these guys and for what they did and what they're doing now. You know, they lived a life, they were in it, their lives were compromised a few times, and, you know, and now they're coming out, they're telling their stories about, you know, their past. And you know, that people love to hear that, you know, and I'm doing the same thing now. I got my show, the Bobby Luisi Show, which you know that. And you know, I really like these guys. I got nothing bad to say about them. You know, I think they're good men.
I do too, Bobby. And look, we all get lost in this life. You know, I have a story of my own, and people out there, they know that. But it's that we would change and we would do better for others. Right. You know, no one, you know, is without sin here, Bobby, right? You know, this is the first thing. We're on a journey here, right? You know, a journey to find the truth, and certainly the truth of ourselves. So it is about others. So people who are improving other people's lives, they have my vote. Everyone has a past, including me. That's what I would say on this. I mean, going back then, so what was the first thing that changed your mind to get you into this life, Bobby? That moment. Was it the money, the violence, the greed? Was you pulled into it? Did you have to go into it?
All right, let me explain. you know, everybody knows about Martha's Vineyard all the way around the world. I mean, it's a nice island off of Cape Cod in Boston. And in the mid-'80s, I went down there, was building homes. I maybe built 50, 100 homes down there. I was speccing some homes, and I had 20 guys working for me. Everything was going great. And I opened a Chinese restaurant on Martha's Vineyard. I mean, my life was nice. I loved it down there, you know. No, didn't even want to go back home. Didn't even like to go back up to Boston. But what happened, the market crashed in the late 80s. And when that happened, I lost my spec homes on the vineyard. I lost my home in Boston. I came back in 1990 with 2 kids, a minivan they were repossessing, and $100. So I was so disgusted trying to do it legally. I said, I'm going to go back to what I know, you know? So I just hit the streets. I was watching what was going on. You know, from that old school of observation, that's what the old wise guys taught me. I sat back for a few months. I watched everything, seen who was doing what. And then I went out and I started grabbing guys, shaking people down, and end up in the drug business when I got started.
Yeah, I mean, in them days, you know, we go into the 90s now, and Joe Marino, Borghese, you know, you had Stanford then, you know, was the boss. But you guys, you know, Molino as well, Joe Molino, you know, this was a different fraction, wasn't it? You guys formed a different fraction. This caused another mafia war with Stanford, didn't it, really? What happened with that, Bobby?
Well, by the time I got there, Stanford was gone and his crew. So Joey took charge, and he made Ralph Natali, and he put Ralph up front. And Ralph was in Cherry Hill, and Joey was in Philadelphia at the time. So when I got there, that was just about settled, you know, when they incorporated me into the family. And Joey had control at that point on. And like I said, the Stanford War itself, I wasn't down there for that. I came afterwards. You know, we were fighting our own war up in Boston.
Yeah, and you was made, right? You was formally introduced, Bobby.
No, I wasn't made when I first went down there. I was proposed in the Petriarca family, but like I said, I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I went down to Philly, and I talked with Joey. So Joey told me that he would make me and my crew, that I'd be a captain in his family for 2 years, and then I could break off and have my own family, like he did.
So what was it like to be made, to have your own family, and to be a captain?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I was already a boss up in Boston. I had my crew. I had my empire, little empire built, you know, big with drugs, loan sharking, any type of racketeering, extortion, gambling, whatever we did. You know, the only thing I wouldn't touch was heroin and prostitutes. I didn't want anything to do with that, but we did just about everything else. By the time I went to Philly, I was already established. And, you know, Joey and Georgie investigated. They knew that. You know, we had mutual friends, and they knew I was established there. And I went back in the North then after my father got killed, and I had to start staying in the neighborhood to protect what my father had and what I had. And, but I wanted the honor of being a May guy, and I wanted to straighten my crew up. You know, that's in your mindset at that time. You know, I wish I never did it, or straighten my guys out, you know, but that's what was my mindset at that time, like I said. Now, becoming a May guy in the Philly family, it was an honor. I got big respect down there. I was the boss of Boston. The way that they had it set up, it's the Bruno Scarfo family, and this is from the feds. They had the Merlino faction in Philadelphia and the Luisi faction in Boston. That's how they split the families up, you know? But we were all Bruno Scarfo. And honestly, Joey was my boss. To me, it was the Merlino family. But the papers could call it whatever they want, you know? But yeah, it was an honor. It was a privilege, you know? When I came back to Boston, I don't think it increased my strength. Maybe it did, because there was an outside faction now that was in the city with me. You know, it was a nice cushion for me. I could tell you that. knowing that I could make a phone call and 6 guys would come up when I need them, or vice versa, you know. So, you know, it's something becoming a boss, a legitimate boss. And I say legitimate because being a made guy legitimizes you in that life. I don't care if you got 1,000 guys with you. If you're not a made guy, you're still not looked at right. I think you know that.
Absolutely. And that's why I asked that question. And so for people out there, you know, I mean, obviously there's a lot of responsibility with being made, you know, in all intents and purposes, you're a lot more accountable, you know, after that. So, you know, it legitimized you, as you said. You know, it certainly wouldn't have hurt your influence, right? But what was the good things about it? How did it change your life? How that was before? Was you more, well, you know, I guess you would have certainly been more a target of law enforcement, right?
I was a target long before the 99. I already had crews around there. They said when my father was killed that they flew 100 agents to Boston because they thought the big wall was really gonna explode. We were already banging at each other, but they thought it was really gonna explode. So I became a big figure at that point with the FBI, DEA, state police, whatever. Going down the initial trip to Philadelphia to meet everybody, I was on camera. It was open surveillance down there. And once they found out that I was a made guy, was a capo, that I was a boss, what I did, I was able to cushion myself and pull myself back from the street as much as I could. And my guys would run everything for me. So it put me in that position too.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Bobby. And I'm just thinking, Nicodemus Scarfo, you know, for instance. I mean, you know, there are a lot of murders attributed to him, a lot out there about his short temper and his violence and all the rest of it. But he was also very entrenched in the narcotics trade. Yeah. And many other families, especially in New York, they put the block on this, obviously, because they knew that this kind of bad thing would certainly make people turn in the wrong way and left them open, right? This was why the rule was put down. So, you know, and then you guys was involved in the narcotics trade as well, yeah? So how did that rule affect you? Because you still made guys. So how did that translate? Were you as a different family? You had your own affairs, your own boss who said it was okay, so you done what you want? Was that how that worked?
I pretty much did what I want. When I went down to Philly, there was a lot of heat down there because Ralph Natali got picked up. First, he violated his supervised release, and then he was getting charged with a meth charge. So we all sat down, and Joey and Georgie felt, listen, this drug thing is no good anymore. You know, they didn't want me dealing with drugs anymore in Boston. But we were still doing it. You know, let me tell you a story. I'll tell you his nickname was the Mole. I used to work with the Colombians. So he came to me one day, he says, Bobby, you know, you're getting all this stuff from me. How come you're not getting it from the Italians in New York? They get 2,000 keys a month, he told me. That was his little cartel. They stretched from New York all the way up. So no one could say that the Italians were involved in the drug business. You know, it's all a facade, my friend. You know, I hit the streets, Steve, right? 1990, I'm broke. They give me a green light to go do whatever I want because I'm a Luisi. I said, well, give me 50,000 so I can start shying. Oh, we don't got no money. What do you mean you got no money? There's no money. There was a few good Shylocks up there. That was it. They weren't made guys. I was supposed to be able to go to the family, being a proposed guy, get 50, 100,000 at a point with no problem. Get me started again. Wasn't there. This is why I had to turn to the drug business. I never wanted to be a drug dealer. I wanted to be in the gambling, the sports, and the loan shark, and I could have did that if the guys up there at that time had the money to give me to get started. You know? So everything came from the drugs. And I made millions in the 90s. Yeah.
It's well documented. Carmine Gelante up there, right? We're running all that with the pizza trial and all that from Sicily all the way through. You know, there was smashing that stuff then. there's a lot of money in this. I mean, it changed everything. You know, he was assassinated, of course, down there in Brooklyn that time. Yeah, Joan Mary's, you know, whatever it was. So this is drugs, right? So what was the Boston drug scene like then for you to maintain control? Because there's a lot of guys. I mean, I know that when you get into this drug scene, it brings a lot of violence with it, Bob. Right?
Yes, it does.
How did you manage that?
Well, like I said, we're in the midst of the war anyway at the time as I was building this business up, you know, and a lot of my enemies were drug dealers in different factions. Some of them got killed and, you know, things happen. But I just kept going a straight course with it. And what I would do, go in the neighborhoods, plant a flag, gather up who was moving and who was grooving over there with the drugs or whatever they were doing, and I would try to take them under my umbrella. And that's how I built, you know, because I went into this with a business mind because of the construction. You know, to me, it was a business. Murder was just a part of it, you know. And I coped well with it, to be honest with you. You know, I really did. Like I told you, I would never get into the heroin business. Unfortunately, December of 99, I'm sorry, of 2019, my oldest daughter passed away from an overdose, you know, and I refused to get into that business because I grew up with a lot of guys that had that problem. You know, I couldn't sell a drug that you needed to have every day to get out of bed. I just couldn't do that. You know, in the 90s and the 80s, cocaine was recreational, and we didn't look at it like that, like a Class A drug that it is now, you know. And so like I said, as far as the cocaine, I just kept pushing and pushing, Bo, recruiting and recruiting. If you're in a neighborhood and you're moving some heavy weight, you're going to be with me. If you're not with me, we're coming after you.
So was there any attempts on your life, Bobby, over this period?
Plenty of attempts on my life.
Yeah, I asked that because I know where this brings this stuff, and there's no evading it. There's really not.
No,
you know, there's really not, especially when you're in the middle of it. It is what it is. So, tell us about one of them times that you missed death.
What, when they came at me? You mean?
Yeah.
I'll tell you about one of them because no one got killed. So I'll tell you one story. While we were hunting, I didn't want to go to people's houses. We'd stay far from it. If we wanted to watch when they were leaving and try to get a schedule on them, that was one thing. I come home one night. I was living in Medford on 2nd Street. I'll never forget this. We're in a 2-family. And I had to park my car maybe 100 feet from the house. So I parked the car. It's like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And one of my guys are in the house. And I'm walking to the door. I had to go up like 5, 6 steps. And I hear a thump. And I turn around. And there's a guy there dressed in black with a mask on. He sees that I saw him. Now, at this point, I'm at the stairs. Now, prior to this, in 94, I broke my back. So I had a back brace on. And I had my gun inside my back brace, you know, with my clips. And I had, we were actually out that night looking for someone, to be honest with you. So I had my dress up stuff. I had my hoodie on. I had 2 sweatshirts, t-shirt. So as this guy's coming at me, I'm trying to grab up my shirt to get my gun out to shoot him. Luckily, he got scared. He seen I saw him. He knows I shoot him. Between him and my house was a driveway. There was a car there. So he ducked under the car. And by the time I got my gun out, he was running down the alley. Plus, I'm in front of my house with my kids in there. I wasn't going to start shooting if I didn't have to, Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one attempt. There was many, but that was one. They tried to come at my house again. So after that, me and my partner got a little frustrated. We started kind of like doing the same thing now. We started going to their house.
Yeah.
You disrespect us once, Steve, that's over with.
Well, you see, I'm sure you agree, Bobby, but violence begets violence.
It does.
It's as simple as that. You know, there's no way out of this cycle, especially the deeper you get into it. It pulls you in and it takes away your options, and it has an effect. The worst effect is that it gets you in your heart and clouds your mind, that you say you can't see a way out of it. Well, really, and this is what people can't understand. They think, well, wow, you know, if people are trying to kill you, or you think you're going to be, why don't you move? Why don't you pick up your bags and run? Get the first plane. But it's not like that, Bob. It's not like that. It's just they don't understand how this translates and where you are. But the start and the ending of this, well, really, that energy is where it gets you inside, and how it locks into your mind. You know what I mean? And you know, it's a terrible thing. But we're talking about violence here, and we're talking about this life, because we're going to go on to the inspirational stuff of how this life is no good. But I've always said, Bob, you know, especially for us, the real lessons are in how to pivot, because how can we really understand true light unless we know darkness? You know, and it can be the other way. You know, you have to call it as it is. So look, we've got a picture of what it was like then. But you went to prison for over a decade, Bob, didn't you?
I did 14 years of federal prison.
I done 12 as a Cat A and straight out to observation, and then with a gun 20 months later, and then another 5, right? So I'll just put that in there so I understand it. You know, I know what this does and what it's, the pain and the suffering involved in having to do something like that. What happened? What was it like for you?
Actually, prison?
Yeah.
Well, what was good, something happened to me a year and a half before I went away. I had a spiritual awakening. And it was March of 98. And that night I took the Lord in my heart, because the things that I saw. I was with a demonic spirit for about 8 hours, Steve, in the room, you know, trying to fight it off. Well, to get past that story, by the time I get picked up, I was looking for a way out. And I'm not going to lie to you. During that year and a half, we were still planning hits. A few guys we wanted to get rid of before, you know, some other guys got home, if you understand what I'm saying. And I was on a toddling fence at that time. I knew what I was doing was wrong. In that spiritual encounter, I seen people that I killed, that we killed in the war. And, you know, I knew the sins that were inside of me, and how evil I was at that point, that thing was even allowed to come to me, you know? So, but I'll get deeper into that another time. So when I get into prison, I have time now to start studying. And what I did is I concentrated on that in prison. I'm not a holy jumper, you know? I don't believe in that Bible thumping and all that. I don't believe in that. I don't bother people. People would never even know that I was a pastor or a theologian, you know? But it was 14 years of studying, writing, teaching. I got a degree in theology in there. You know, now naturally, I'm in prison. I fought a lot in there, you know, a lot of tussles in there. And it's like anything else. You're an inmate. You know, you can't help that, you know. And I'm not the type of guy. I guess I was still prideful in there at the time, you know, and I don't tolerate disrespect, because I don't disrespect anybody.
So here's a question. Bobby, to help people, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who need answers to this stuff, right? So you're in prison. You're a serious offender. You're doing a long-term sentence. But you're in the midst of a change, right? You know you want out of that life, and you're actively pursuing what will help you get out of it. But you're still in the hell of a prison. You still have the past hanging on to you. You still have your name. And you still have to protect yourself. You talked about a lot of fights. You know, I mean, I had the same. Prisons like that over a long time, especially if you have a past and you have a kind of a name around you, right? So how did you deal with that? How did you deal with that, wanting to change? But, you know, my understanding about conflict and fighting, Bob, as I'm sure, is I stay away from it, because I know how serious it gets and how serious you have to be to end it quickly. So there's no middle ground here with violence. So I'm interested, for people out there, when you was trying to change, how did you deal with this extreme violence in prison?
Well, listen, you know, there's a duality in all of us. You know, we want to survive. We're survivors, you know. and also we want to do the right thing. And this is the battle between the soul and the spirit, you know. The problem with me was, like I said, I come from a violent past and was very violent. And I would really go a long way with these guys in prison. But you know as well as I do, familiarity breeds contempt. When I got a lot of respect in prison, but when a guy's around you a little too long, they don't understand. And sometimes they get a little carried away with themselves, and that you got to take care of it. You got to put them back in line. And it's a form of respect. Like I said, I never went into prison to shake anybody down, hurt anybody, be in a whatever. I minded my business and I did my own thing most of the time. Now, I was always with Italian groups. And, you know, I was a boss on the street, so I was always like a higher up guy with them, you know, and got a lot of respect. But if you disrespected me, even till today, Steve, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, Christ is in my heart. I love Christ. But, you know, in the Bible, Jesus says, if he slaps you in the cheek, turn the other cheek. Doesn't he say that?
Yeah.
And what that was meant for, and no one understands, if a Roman slapped you in the face and you assaulted him, it's a death penalty. So Jesus was given all these lessons. And I say this till today, if Satan thinks he could slap you in the face every day, he's going to do it, you know? So you got to be a man, you got to stand your ground. Whatever facet of life you're in, wherever your heart is in, you're still a man, Steve, you know? And I can tell you're a good guy, a big guy. I'm sure you took care of yourself well in prison and carried yourself well, you know? And unfortunately, there are guys that are going to test you and disrespect you.
Bobby, absolutely. And look, you know, I've said this, I've done content on this. In places like that, you know, or even in that life, you know, this life of organized crime, serious crime, doesn't matter how big and bad you are on all this, whatever, that's just rubbish. Serious people know when they actually live this life and know anyone can kill you. The smallest guy, if he catches you wrong and sets you up, that's it. It's over. There's no big, strong, and all of this as such. You know that. Mm-hmm. So prison, it's a place you can't go nowhere. You can't, and you know, I was involved in a lot of violence in prison and stuff like that. It's about survival. It's about doing the best you can. It's about keeping your name. It's about keeping a code of conduct and looking after your friends. But these environments are very tough, right? Mm-hmm. They're very tough. They're very primitive, basic human instincts going on there that has no rhyme or reason. It's just basically survival. That's why I asked you that question, because it's interesting. And what I always tell people with me, even now, is look, your heart qualities are, you know, are everything. But you keep that behind your shield. You don't need to prove to yourself you're a good person. If you're a good person, you're a good person. But you keep that behind your shield. That doesn't mean you don't have to do what you have to do if you have to respond really seriously to something, because this is a boundary. Some people have a real conflict with this, Bob, because they don't know how to translate it. They really don't.
I know, and you know that, you know, for years I taught in prison and I taught these guys and I had my theology classes, you know, and I try to tell them, you know, Steve, we live in the world. This is Satan's world. God is in our hearts, right? Now, the conflict with the soul and the spirit, like I talked about in the flesh before, you know, we're still men. I know what my capabilities are. I never want to hurt anybody again. Never want to raise my hand to anybody. I don't even like conflict and get into arguments. I don't like to do that. But I still have this problem with disrespect with people, you know, and it's all psychological in psychology, because from all my studies and everything I did, you know, if you try to walk a straight line as a Christian every day, you're going to get slapped in the face. You got to stand on your ground. You have to be a man, but you also have to have love in your heart.
Yeah.
See, when Christ comes in your heart, Steve.
Look, you know, another thing I say to people, Bobby, on this, and I train a lot of people. I coach a lot, even executives, you know, some really humble. You'll be surprised some of the things they struggle with. But I like to make it really simple. And I say, look, anyone who you think would be a great person, or you know, whoever, or has done something pioneering or wonderful, or you will see that in their story, they was ridiculed.
Mm-hmm.
They was traumatized. They had a hard road. People tried to block them. They got a lot of envy, jealousy. They was dragged through the streets. The difference is how much pain we can take and our perseverance, and that we hold to our course, our purpose, and doing the right thing. This is not an easy thing to do, but it's quite simple. It's the world comes in. It's our response to it, Bob. Look, another thing about conflicts, because this is really important, and I know people are going to really get the stuff out of this, is, look, so you come out of prison. I know you had a lot of profound stuff go on in there, and I'd like to invite you back another time, and we'll talk about this at another time. But when you come out, then you're faced with more conflict. This is another example, because I knew that with Joey Murillo and, Borghese, they was up on trial. Now, you said you was going to take the stand, but then you reneged. You said, no, I'm not going to take the stand. I'm not going to do that. And you didn't do that. Right. What happened with that?
Well, what happened, the government came to me. I'll tell you a story and why I did what I did. When I got picked up on that charge, me and Joey got picked up the same day. I think they picked 11 of us up from Philly to Boston on those drug charges. I was fine. I said, all right, I'm going to get a break. I was looking at 10 to 12 if I took a plea, which I could handle. That's not a problem, and that's what I was looking to do at the time. And I found out a good friend of mine, my old partner, was in there. He said, Bobby, he said, I heard there's murder indictments coming down. Did you talk to your lawyer? So I got my lawyer, Jack. And at that time, when I got pinched, Marty Bedreau was an AUSA in Boston. He had retired from there, and he went into my lawyer's firm. So 2 weeks later, when I told him what I heard, he came back with Marty, and he said, Bobby, on this case, I could get you 10 to 12. Now, he's a federal prosecutor, retired. He said, but you got a problem because there's a murder, I don't know if it was one or two, that all your friends turned on you. They're all flipping on you. And they're laughing up there because they got you cold. I says, he told me I didn't get indicted on that murder because the Merlino case was open, so they wanted to indict me on that first. And when the grand jury changed, they were going to come and indict me with murder one, that I had no way to escape. It was a decision that I had to make. Now, it had nothing to do with the Philly guys. I would have never did anything against them. But the Boston guys that I ran with, they all told on me because they're all facing a lot of time. They want to get out. This is when I say now the mob's over in Omerta and La Cosa Nostra. It's all nonsense now, Now it's every man for themselves. So they asked me about 3 murders, and they wanted the caliber of guns that we used, and I told them. And my lawyer brought that back to them, and right away, boom, they brought me up there. The ballistics matched, and I had a queen for the day, and I talked with them, and pretty much told me what I was facing. But if I come with them now, I'll be looking at 10 years. They'll take 5 off, and I'll end up doing 60 months. During the course of talking with them, with these 302s and all these meetings that I had with them, negotiations started breaking down with them. I didn't have it in my heart to be a rat. I really couldn't do it, Steve. It's something to sit up there and these guys that you love, and you got to look at them, There was even one point they said, you want to go retroactive? We'll put you on the street with a wire and let you out. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to jam up my cousins and my friends and my guys and my crew. I can't do that, So that didn't work out. And then negotiations broke down. And I ended up going to about 6 status hearings. And the government said, we're not going to give him a 5K1. So I was able to rip the plea deal up and go back to my original indictment with the cocaine, which was a 20-year charge. And I went to trial on that twice. And I lost twice. But the second time I went to trial, I think it was 2006, Paulie, they changed the guidelines in the federal government.
Yeah.
And I fell through the cracks, and they took 47 months off the sentence. And I got out in 2013. So I didn't rat on them, Steve.
Yeah.
You know, to finish the story, because I know the question you asked and what happened with me. One of my guys were involved in the Ghana art heist in 1990. And he was with me after that happened. And he told me about where the art was buried. They came to me before I was getting out to tell me, the FBI, that I was getting subpoenaed to a trial for this Rico Ponzo that they caught. They wanted to know what my plans were and where I was going. So I brushed them off. And then they called me about the artwork. Then they came back to me again, the feds, and they said, listen, we'll put you in the program. We'll change your name, set you up again. And in my heart, I don't think I was ready to go back to Boston, Steve. You know, I think I could have turned pretty fast if I did, to be honest with you. So I says, all right, I'll take that deal. And I end up taking that deal. I didn't testify against anybody. I was already subpoenaed to the trial that I went to. It wouldn't have mattered. And I wasn't going to plead the fifth for this guy. I was looking to kill him in the street. I wasn't putting myself back in prison for this scumbag, you know?
You see, this is another, thanks to that, Bob, because this is another example of how this stuff translates, right? In the cold light of day. So let's go on. You know, I mean, in Boston in them days, I mean, another guy I've talked to, he's a good guy, Anthony Atarala.
Oh, yeah, great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy, Anthony. You know, he's got another story. You know, people can judge or whatever, but, you know, Anthony has his own truth. He's there in Boston. I've interviewed him. You know, the content's there. You can go there, you know, make up your own judgments about what you think, right? But listen to what people have to say. You know, this is what I say. So, you know, the content is there. You know, mate. Did you know Anthony back in the day? I mean, I know you know another guy, you know, another good friend of mine, John Alite.
Oh yeah,
you know,
great
John
guy.
and John and Anthony then in them days. At all?
What happened when I'm building my family, my crew, I was going down to Springfield. In the Springfield area, the Genovese, they from there to Connecticut and then to Western Massachusetts. And me, in my mind, I feel that's mine and I want a piece of it. So I started going down there. At that time, Al Bruno was the boss. They had shelved Anthony. So when I went down there and I got really close with Anthony, they said, Anthony, come on, come with me. I'll give you a button, you know, and I'll put some guys under you down here. He says, you know, Bobby, I want to stay loyal to the Genovese. So now, as this is all going on, you know, I get pinched. Anthony's still on the, I don't know, no, Anthony was still on the street at that time, and I get pinched. And then I found out later that Anthony got made with the Genovese family. But what happened, I was in with Big John, the guy that actually ratted on him. Everything Anthony tell you was very accurate. Anthony's telling you 100%. That's the way it went down, you know? And what they did with Anthony was wrong with this John coming down. You know, I was with the guy that got the guy, you know, a little Italian, the guy's a Gravano. I was in Alamo with him for like 13 months. I think he passed away now. And I'm saying, how did they send their swoons down to Anthony and these guys in Springfield? You know, it was like, how can I say it? The Adi knew he was a rat. He was told, you send them down there, you're a boss, you send them down to your guys. You know, it's just a bad story. And I agree 100% what Anthony did. 150%.
Yeah, you know, I had a great interview with Anthony and, you know, unbelievable content, you know, really. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, you know, I had a wonderful interview with John Alite as well. I still talk to John. You know, we do other work and different stuff, and we try to get a positive message out there. Let me ask you, Bobby, about John Alite. This is another example, right? And Gotti Jr. Now, there's a lot about these two. What's your view on that, and can you clear any of this up about these two guys?
You know, John Jr. denies, you know, John Alite's participation in a lot of things and being that closer to the family. But I got to tell you, I was with his cousin Pasquale in Arizona for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And we used to talk about John a lot, you know, and he told me a lot of things that John did for the family because naturally Pasquale participated. You know, he was in there for murder. And I know a lot of the stories that John tells is true. You know, I know a lot of people try to say he fabricates or does this, but listen, I know he was a violent kid. I know about his past. And, you know, I mean, he's a man now, not a kid. I didn't mean to say it like that, but I'm talking the past.
No,
you
absolutely.
know, the 90s, the 80s, whatever. You know, so I'm a supporter of John's. I love John. He's my friend. We do each other's shows, you know, and I could only say good things about him.
Look, absolutely. You know, I like John too. You know, as I said, you know, for me, it's very evident. You know, people can say what they want. They always come with this angle, what it is or what it ain't. A lot of these people are talking that a turn anyway. But for me, you can see and you know with John. You know, he lived that life. He was there. He was involved. It's documented. It's a history. That's it. For me, John, you know, I like John. He's a very likable guy. We speak. He's always been wonderful with me. You know, and you know his message is to make things better for the younger ones. He's actively trying to do that, and he's had to take a lot from other forces who are not standing up. It has to be said, and saying anything apart from throwing stones. But the documentation on their journey is there too, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I see stuff like this, and you know, I know you do some work with John and them too. So I thought we'd speak about that as well, because people are really interested in this. One of my things is to get someone else's view on this with a bit of weight, a bit of authenticity, who can add some real content to the tale, apart from all these people who want to say stuff that they don't understand. Right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. You know, they're fast to judge whatever we do. They didn't live the life. You know, they didn't do time like we did. They don't understand it. You know, these are guys that watch the movies. Oh, you can't be a rat. You can't be that. They don't understand what we went through. They don't understand the hard times. They don't understand the life, the 24/7, the aggravation, you know, the treachery. They just don't have no comprehension of it. A lot of guys that you see are flipping, you know, they were slighted at some point. Something happened to them and they said, I don't want this no more, you know? And I believe that on most of these guys. You know, you stay loyal to a family, you stay loyal to a crew, and then everybody turns on you at the last minute. Where's the loyalty? Where's the honor? We're supposed to be men of honor. Where's the honor?
Yeah, you know, both of us know there's no honor in that, certainly. No. And the truth being known in a lot of this stuff in the life, when we really get down to it and strip away some of the glamour or the good times or the glitzy stuff, it's not an honorable profession. Treachery is closer. That everyone's looking to capitalize and they're looking to move up. Right?
Yeah.
And this is what it is. Move you to the side, take what you got, whatever you want to, you know, whatever you want to call it. But look, so let's talk about the good stuff now, Bob, because, you know, I really respect your journey because it has a real metamorphosis. It's like mine. It's like two extremes. It's up there doing that darkness, right, overcome with all that stuff, that life. And then at the other end, you're now a minister in Tennessee. Like you've said, you're not no Bible basher. You're a lot more real than that. You're a lot more direct and proper than that. There are forces in this world. I'm very spiritual, you know, as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of it's documented as well. I've had a lot of profound experiences. Some, like you've touched on, they're the same thing, right? Everyone can't be lying, is what we said, what we're saying, or making it up. But look, what I'm interested in is, at what point, how did you get away from your darker self? Would be the question for people.
Well, I tell everybody and when I teach them, you know, the word of God is a seed and it comes in your heart. Okay. And when it comes in your heart, it doesn't sprout up right away. It takes time, you know? And okay, this happened to me in 98. I took Christ back in my life. I was still on the street, you know, but I still had that evil part in me too. Over the course of time, the Holy Spirit works that out of you in the Word of God. The more you learn and the more you read and study, it changes your mindset. You know, this is what I used to teach my guys. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. You know, some people go in church, oh, I found God tonight, praise God, and they want to go out and preach scripture. That's nonsense to me. Not that it's not good for the person, I'm not saying that. But it takes time to change people. You know?
Here's a question, Bobby, right? And they ask me this all the time. My answer is always the same. I've only got my truth, right? Was there an epiphany? Was there that line in the sand moment? I know my answer. I'm laughing because I know yours are going to be similar. Mine was a progression, like you've just said. Was yours different? Was there an epiphany?
Well, they called it that in the papers back then. But like I said, I had a spiritual encounter for 8 hours with a demonic being. Showed me my sins. I seen people's heads of people that were killed in the war, you know, and he started to show me my evils. And what he wanted to do was recruit me. I know it sounds crazy and insane, but for 8 hours I stood with that thing. I had to call my mother's church because my mother had a non-denominational church. My family came over with Pastor Lewis. I took the host that night. They blessed the house. Threw everything out of the house that this thing touched. And I'll tell you, it was an experience that I can't even, how can I say it? I can't even duplicate it in words to tell you, you know? And look at me, I'm stuttering now. Anyway, so that happened to me in 98, Steve. And that was the point right there to see that there is Satan and there is Jesus. Because the only thing that helped me in those 8 hours is I kept telling him, I want to be with Jesus. I don't want you. I kept rejecting him. And every time I rejected him, he would regress. But I was so evil, he'd come back. He'd just keep coming back at me. And I seen the power just using Jesus's name. And I said, that's authority. That's the man right there. You know,
you know, there are a lot of documented instances of stuff like this, right? Just to say that. But let's go forward to when it translates, you know, in normal time. So then from that profound experience, obviously, that's moved you quicker. What I like to say is I found my way back to myself. Not that I had a bad heart. They say, oh, you're bad. I said, well, good people can do bad things. And I was very lost. Certainly, I was all of these things you say and more. But I found my way back to myself. Not that I was this bad thing, right? So no doubt it was the same for you. So what was your mission from that point after so much darkness now? What did you have to do?
Well, to me, I wanted to know why that happened to me. Why me? Why did I see this thing? Why did I see all of this? I had to find out. Did I lose my mind? You know, and am I snapping? The depression got to me? I don't know. You know, so my quest was to find the truth. That was my whole quest. And I got into deep reading and studying, you know, and I had the Word of God inside of me. I don't know how many times I read the Bible, how many teachings I've done. Like I said, I wrote a book. I published it when I got out of prison, God's Plan Revealed by Robert Luisi. It's on Amazon. It's up on Amazon.
Yeah.
And what that book does is I break down, I had a theology class that I broke the Bible down from Genesis to Revelations. And that's what that book is about. The book of my experience is going to be coming out after my next book comes out. I'll write about that epiphany and that spiritual encounter. But I learned, Steve, over time, it takes time. And that's what I want to tell people. You got to stick with it. It's endurance. That's what he teaches us, you know? And you got to endure. You got to persevere. You got to stay with it. And it changes your mind. See, if our hearts weren't good, God would have never came in our heart. We would have got rejected, you know? But he saw a good heart. We got to remember we're battling the soul, the conscious mind. And the only way we can change that is with the word of God,
Yeah.
Steve.
So this is very, very, very important from a very advanced time that we're in, having circumvented all that stuff and coming back from where we was. This is what I narrow it down to, is the heart qualities. Because in their formative years, if we didn't have that anyway, there wouldn't be anything to work with. So this is what, when everyone is saying, oh, this, not that, if you want a simple sentence to it, and this is what they all are, there it is. That's a simple sentence. That, you know, my art qualities really saved me. And I had the courage, the opportunity, the circumstance, even the intervention and the timing to find my way back to myself. From there, meaningful change is really possible. This is the message to people. Do you agree?
I agree 100%, but it's hard to do it on our own.
Yeah.
We need God.
Yeah.
We need God. You know,
the
in the world,
the intervention.
Yes.
You know, the intervention. Because, you know, let's face it, you are right. We do need that. There are, you know, now, you know, I want to make it a bit broader for people because it is about really empowering them, right? And some people, they don't get this easy straight away, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there are many ways for intervention, but to get yourself on that path is the key, like the yellow brick road. Because when you start going down it, more is revealed, Bob. You know that.
Oh, I know. I know.
More is revealed. So this is the task, to get people onto the path of their own healthy, successful, happy, prosperous purpose. And then, you know, the life changes, you know, that translates out to people, places, and things. You know, this is my experience. So, look, what have you learned? You know, if you were to say to people the most important things that you've learned about your journey, where you are now, Bob, what would they be?
What have I learned?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that.
What a question. But, you know, if you just make it simple.
I'll tell you what. You know, I used to seek the world. And that got me. I became a murderer, drug dealer, extortionist. Because these are worldly things. Once I started seeking God and I realized what the truth was, you know, it started to change my life. And that's what I want people to seek. You know, we have Allah, we have Buddha, we have all these different religions. However a person wants to seek, it's good, you know, because there's a lot of good in the Muslim world and all these other worlds, you know. And any way to seek, to look for that higher power, I think we really need that. God created us to look for that higher power and to go find that higher power. So I can tell you what I learned from all of this, right, is righteousness, humility, to be humble, you know, and that makes you a better person. And that's what I think I achieved from all of this. You know, people say every day, oh, we're sinners with this and that. Read the 10 Commandments every day, Stephen. Tell me how many you broke on that day. I bet you none. Okay? We're good people. No, we get up every day. We go to work. We try to do the right thing in life. That's what's important. You know what's important? I don't care if you have to go sweep streets for a living. Do that. Be a good man. Be a good father. Be a good mother. And go home and put your head on the pillow at night and don't worry about anything because God will provide.
That's a great answer. So for people out there who are far away from this principle, this concept that you've got at the end of your journey, and maybe at the start or deeper into theirs, and are really entrenched in this thinking and this lifestyle, and these people, places, and things, Bob, how do they get out of it? And what is your message to them of what they should do to change the trajectory of their lives into something better for them?
You know, out of this life, there's not too many ways out, Steve. You know that. In the old days, it was either murder, you know, or prison for life. That's what we believed in our life when I was on the street, you know. But there are other ways out. There's other ways to get out of the situations that you're in. I don't care race, creed, color, what background you're coming from. There's always a way out, you know. First, you have to, it's self-reflection. When you look in the mirror, you have to see what you are inside. You have to search for yourself, like you said earlier. And I think that's the main thing. If it's possible that you can leave your environment, leave your environment. Just go away. You know, if you're jammed up in prison, make a different decision. Okay? If you want to get out of the life, if you're really seeking to get out of the life, there's a lot of different ways to do it, Steve. You know that. You know, now we have options to get out of this life, to move away, you know? So, I mean, that's what I did. I went to Tennessee when I got out in 2013. I didn't feel like I could come back. I stood there 5 years, got remarried and divorced down there. You know, in the last several years, I've been traveling from Florida to, you know, but I've been back home, what, about 3 years, Paulie? Yes. I've been back in Boston about 3 years because, you know, my kids are up here, my mother, my whole family. You know, you start to miss everybody. I was gone for 20 years, you know, and listen, I changed my life. I'm not the same person. I came back to Boston as a different person. And that's my biggest achievement. I don't care if I don't make money anymore. I don't care about any of that. You know, I really don't have any lust for money, power, ego, pride. We all got a little pride and ego in us. Don't get me wrong. We're supposed to. I mean, we all have a little of it, you know, but not enough that it's vanity. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, my journey, it's amazing to me too, from what I was to where I am now, you know.
Bobby, look, you know, I mean, I certainly admire your journey because I know what an internal journey for you alone. Never mind the outside stuff, what people may say, or what that is to change your life. You know, to change you. It's to change everything. You have to change absolutely everything from the bottom up. Right? Mm-hmm. You have to live that life. And looking at you, you know, there's no question, like me, that you are a complete metamorphosis. You know, a person of one thing that changed completely into something else, from darkness into light. You know, and that's an unbelievable big shift story of inspiration. You've got a book coming out, haven't you, Bob? Do you want to say about the people out there who want to know more about you, want to know more about your journey, a little bit about your upcoming book that's going to be released?
Right now, I'm doing a book with Emily Sweeney. She's an investigative reporter for the Boston Globe. Great writer. She's working on everything right now, and which is good. We're hoping to have it out the end of the summer before Christmas, but you know, with this COVID and these schedulings, everything's different now. You know, I wrote a book in prison from Capital Christian. I have to wait for this book to come out, and then I'm going to rewrite that book and publish that. You know, so I'll have a few books coming out. What did she title the book, Paulie? Made Man?
I forget.
Yeah, I got it somewhere. I got the paper of the title of the book. And I'll tell you, I know it's going to be good because she's written some of the books, Emily. You know, so that'll be coming soon.
That's fantastic, Bobby. You know, and I know you're active in social media. You know, people could Google you even, you know, YouTube, all this stuff. You know, they find a way to get hold of you. They want to get hold of you. And look, you know, I'd like to say, you know, I wish you very well on your journey into the future and, you know, all the wonderful work that you're doing. You know, I know we'll certainly do some other work, you know, in the future together, I hope. And
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. And well done for changing and inspiring lives with what you've learned through your journey. And thanks for coming on the Big Shift, Boy.
Thank you so much for having me on, my brother.
Make sure to subscribe, like, go into stephengillen.com and sign up for more wonderful content to expedite, help, and support you on your own personal journey of success.